When Marcus asked me to fetch him coffee during the annual shareholder meeting, I didn't expect the room to erupt in laughter. But it did. "Come on, Sarah," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "You're here anyway, make yourself useful and grab me a cappuccino. 2 sugars. He didn't even look at me when he said it, just waved his hand dismissively toward the exit. I was standing near the back of the boardroom, taking notes on my tablet. Around us sat 37 people, board members, major investors, department heads. The chairman hadn't even started the formal agenda yet. People were still settling in, making small talk, reviewing the quarterly reports that had been distributed. The laughter started with Jenkins from accounting. Then it spread. By the time Marcus flashed his practice smile around the room, at least a dozen people were chuckling. My husband David, Marcus's younger brother, sat 3 rows ahead. I watched the back of his neck turn red. I smiled. Set down my tablet. "Of course, Marcus. Cappuccino. 2 sugars." The laughter faded as I walked out. Behind me, I heard Marcus say something about keeping it in the family and at least she's here to help. More polite chuckles. This wasn't the first time. It wouldn't be the last. Not yet, anyway. Let me back up. 6 months earlier, David and I had attended his parents' anniversary party at their estate in Connecticut. 50 years married. White tablecloths, champagne fountains, a string quartet. Marcus had flown in from Singapore where he'd been closing a major deal, his words, repeated at least 8 times that evening. I'd known Marcus for 7 years, since David and I got engaged. He was older by 3 years, more polished, more ambitious. He joined Meridian Technologies right after business school, worked his way up to vice president of operations. He wore custom suits, drove a Tesla, had opinions about wine regions. David was different, quieter. He'd chosen academia over corporate life, taught computer science at NYU. We lived in a modest 2-bedroom in Brooklyn. Drove a used Honda, had opinions about pizza places. At the anniversary party, Marcus had cornered me near the dessert table. So Sarah, still doing the assistant thing. He'd picked up a macaron, examined it like it was a stock portfolio. "How's that working out?" "It's good," I'd said. "Keeps me busy." "I'm sure." He'd bitten into the macaron. "Must be nice, though. Low stress. Leave work at work. Not like those of us carrying the weight of actual responsibility." His wife Jennifer had appeared then, touched his arm. "Marcus, your father wants a photo." After they left, David's mother had approached me. Her expression was apologetic. "He doesn't mean anything by it, dear. He's just very focused on success. Always has been, even as a boy." I'd smiled. Nodded. Taken another sip of champagne. Here's what Marcus didn't know. I'd founded Meridian Technologies 9 years ago in a cramped studio apartment with 2 laptops and a dream. Built the first product, a data analytics platform, mostly by myself, coding 16-hour days while working part-time at a coffee shop. Secured the initial funding. Hired the first 10 employees. Grew the company to 200 people and $40 million in annual revenue. 3 years ago, after marrying David, I'd made a decision. I was tired, burned out. The board wanted to take the company public, and I wanted a life. So I'd stepped back, promoted our COO to CEO, took the title senior advisor and a seat on the board. Kept my 60% ownership quiet. I worked from home mostly, consulting on major decisions, attending key meetings. To outsiders, especially to David's family, I looked like an executive assistant, someone who took notes, organized schedules, made coffee runs. David knew the truth, of course. But I'd asked him not to tell his family. His mother would make it a thing, brag to her friends, throw parties, change how she treated me. His father would want business advice at every family dinner. And Marcus would never forgive me for being more successful than him. So we kept it quiet. And for 3 years, it had worked fine. Until 6 months ago, when Marcus had been promoted to VP of Operations at Meridian. He'd called David the night he got the news, ecstatic. "I'm finally at a company that recognizes talent," he'd said. "Not like those stodgy places where it's all about tenure and politics. Meridian promotes on merit." I'd been sitting next to David on the couch. Heard every word through the speaker. "That's great, Marcus," David had said, glancing at me. "Congratulations. You should tell Sarah to apply." Marcus had continued. We're always looking for good administrative support. I could put in a word. Get her something better than whatever she's doing now. After the call, David had turned to me. This is going to be a problem. It'll be fine, I'd said. But I'd known he was right. The first month, Marcus had been too busy learning his new role to cause issues. He'd mentioned me occasionally in passing to David saw someone who looked like Sarah in the elevator. Does Sarah know how to use Excel? We need someone for data entry. Month 2, he'd started inviting us to company events. Bring Sarah, he'd say. Let her see what a real tech company looks like. We'd gone to one. A product launch party at a rooftop venue in Manhattan. Marcus had introduced me to people as my brother's wife, and she does administrative work, very organized. He'd patted David on the back and said, "At least one of us married for love instead of ambition, right?" Jennifer had looked uncomfortable. David had gripped his drink tighter. I'd excused myself to the bathroom and spent 10 minutes sitting in a stall, breathing slowly, reminding myself why I'd chosen anonymity. Month 3. Marcus had invited himself to our apartment for dinner. "This is cozy," he'd said, looking around our living room. "Very minimalist." Jennifer had elbowed him. "It's lovely," she'd said to me. "You've decorated beautifully." Over pasta which I'd made from scratch. Marcus had talked about Meridian. The new markets they were entering. The products in development. The vision the CEO had laid out. "We're going public next year," he'd said, refilling his wine glass. "Stock options are going to make a lot of people very wealthy. Not the assistants obviously, but the people making actual decisions." David's jaw had clenched. "Sarah's work is important." "Of course it is," Marcus had agreed, too quickly. "Every company needs good support staff. Where would executives be without someone to manage their calendars?" I'd serve dessert. Changed the subject. Smiled through the rest of the evening. After they left, David had started, "Sarah, I can't." "I know," I'd said. "I know. Let me tell him." "This is ridiculous." "Not yet." I'd started loading the dishwasher. "The timing isn't right." "When will it be right?" I hadn't had an answer for that. Month 4. Marcus had started assigning me tasks. We'd been at his house for Sunday brunch. Jennifer had made quiche. Their daughter Lily was showing me her art project when Marcus had walked in with his laptop. "Sarah, since you're here, can you look at this presentation? I need it formatted properly for Tuesday's board meeting." Jennifer's useless with PowerPoint. Jennifer had flinched. I'd looked at the screen. It was my board meeting. My company. I'd seen the agenda weeks ago. "Sure," I'd said. "Email it to me." "Perfect." He'd closed the laptop. "Save me an hour at least. You're good at this kind of thing." I'd spent 3 hours that night reformatting his presentation, fixing his grammar, correcting his data analysis. He'd used it to present to my own board. They'd complimented his thoroughness. David had found me afterward in my home office, staring at the wall. "This has to stop," he'd said. "The annual shareholder meeting is in 2 months," I told him. "I'll handle it then." "Why wait?" "Because." I turned to face him. "Because if I tell him now, he'll think I'm being petty. Defensive. He'll find a way to make it about me being emotional or insecure. But at the shareholder meeting, with everyone there, when the truth comes out naturally." I'd paused. "That's different." David had understood. He always did. Month 5 had been worse. Marcus had started copying me on emails, not to inform me but to delegate. "Sarah, can you compile this data? Sarah, can you proofread this memo? Sarah, can you coordinate this meeting?" I'd done it all. Every task. Perfectly. His colleagues at Meridian had started to notice me. At the elevator. In the parking garage. "Oh, you're Marcus's sister-in-law," they'd say. "He mentioned you help out sometimes." One woman, Claire from product development, had been kinder. "It's sweet that you support your family like this," she'd said. Not everyone would be so generous with their time. I'd thanked her. Walked away. Sat in my car for 20 minutes. The week before the shareholder meeting, Marcus had called David with an opportunity. "There's an executive assistant position opening up on my floor," he'd said. $55,000 a year. Benefits. I can get Sarah an interview. She doesn't need." David had started. "I know it's not much," Marcus had interrupted. "But it's better than whatever freelance stuff she's doing." More stable. She'd be supporting 3 VPs, so good exposure. She could learn a lot. After David hung up, he'd looked at me with something close to fury. I'm going to tell him, he'd said. Right now. This is insane. 2 more days, I'd said. The shareholder meeting is in 2 days. I don't care about the meeting. I do. I'd taken his hands. I need this to happen the right way. Please trust me. He'd trusted me. He always did. Which brought us to today. The annual shareholder meeting. The cappuccino request. The laughter. I'd returned to the boardroom with Marcus's coffee cappuccino, 2 sugars, exactly as requested. Set it on the table in front of him without a word. He'd nodded absently, already engaged in conversation with the CFO about Q3 projections. I'd gone back to my spot near the wall. Picked up my tablet. Waited. The chairman, Robert Chen, whom I'd hired 7 years ago, called the meeting to order at exactly 10 o'clock. Welcome everyone, Robert said. We have a full agenda today, so let's begin. First item. Approval of last quarter's minutes. The formalities proceeded. Minutes approved. Financial reports reviewed. Department updates presented. Marcus gave his operations update at 10:47. I timed it. He'd spent 3 weeks preparing, and it showed slick slides. Confident delivery. He talked about efficiency improvements, cost reductions, timeline optimizations. The board nodded along, taking notes. In conclusion, Marcus said, advancing to his final slide, operations is positioned for significant growth as we move toward our IPO. With the right leadership, he paused for effect. We're going to exceed every projection. Polite applause. Marcus sat down, satisfied. Robert continued through the agenda. Marketing update. Sales update. Product roadmap. Each presentation was thorough, professional. This was my company. These were my people. They were brilliant. At 11:23, Robert reached the item I'd been waiting for. Next, he said, we need to address the motion from our majority shareholder regarding the IPO timeline. The room shifted. People sat up straighter. This was the important part. Marcus leaned over to the VP of sales. Who's the majority shareholder? He whispered, loud enough for me to hear. I thought it was some investment group. Robert was still talking. As you all know, the question of when to go public has been under discussion for 18 months. Our CEO has recommended moving forward next quarter. However, our majority shareholder has some concerns about market conditions and wants to delay until Q3 of next year. Murmurs around the room. Marcus looked confused. Before we vote, Robert continued, I'd like to invite our majority shareholder to address the board directly. As many of you know, she rarely attends these meetings in person, preferring to work behind the scenes, but given the significance of this decision, she's here today. My pulse was steady. This was it. Robert looked directly at me. Sarah, would you like to present your position? The room went silent. Completely, utterly silent. I could feel every eye turning toward me. Could sense the confusion rippling through the board members who didn't know, the shock from those who'd suspected but never confirmed, the dawning realization from Marcus. I stood up, picked up my tablet, walked to the front of the room. Thank you, Robert, I said. My voice was calm, professional. I'd done this 1,000 times before. For those of you who don't know me beyond today's coffee run, a few nervous laughs. My name is Sarah Chen. I founded Meridian Technologies 9 years ago and currently hold 60% of the company's shares. Marcus's face had gone white, then red, then white again. I advanced my first slide. It showed the company's ownership structure, with my name at the top. I stepped back from daily operations 3 years ago to focus on strategic oversight and product development, I continued. I've remained actively involved in all major decisions, including our hiring of Marcus Thompson as VP of Operations 6 months ago. Marcus's mouth opened, closed, opened again. Regarding the IPO timeline, I said, moving to the next slide. I've analyzed current market conditions, reviewed our financial readiness, and consulted with our investment bankers. While I understand the enthusiasm for moving quickly, I believe we'll achieve better valuation and long-term stability if we delay until Q3 next year. I spent the next 15 minutes walking through my analysis. Market volatility, competitor movements, our product pipeline, revenue projections. Every board member was taking notes. This was the level of detail they expected. This was why they trusted my judgment. When I finished, Robert opened the floor for questions. Jenkins from accounting raised his hand. Sarah, given your majority position, you could simply decide this unilaterally. Why bring it to a vote? Because, I said, I built this company on collaborative decision-making. I own the majority of shares, yes. But I value the expertise and perspective of everyone in this room. If the board strongly disagrees with my recommendation, I want to hear why. Claire from product development spoke next. I've been here 4 years and I never knew you were the founder. Why the secrecy? I smiled. Not secrecy, exactly. Just privacy. I wanted the company to grow based on the merit of our work, not on my personality or profile. And personally, I needed space to rebuild my life after nearly burning out in the early years. And Claire glanced at Marcus. The coffee runs? I don't mind helping out, I said. Making coffee isn't beneath me. Nothing is beneath me if it needs doing. That's something I learned building this company from nothing. The room was quiet again, but different this time. Thoughtful instead of shocked. Robert called for the vote. The motion to delay the IPO until Q3 next year passed unanimously. As the meeting moved to the next agenda item, I returned to my spot along the wall. Picked up my tablet, made a few notes. Marcus hadn't moved. Hadn't spoken. His cappuccino sat untouched in front of him, probably cold by now. The meeting concluded at 12:47. As people gathered their materials, several board members approached me. Handshakes. Congratulations on the presentation. Questions about my vision for the company post-IPO. Marcus was one of the last to leave. He stopped in front of me, and for a moment, I thought he might apologize. Instead, he said, "You made me look like a fool." "No," I said quietly. "I didn't. You did that yourself." His jaw clenched. David knew. All this time he knew, and neither of you said anything. I asked him not to tell your family. I wanted privacy. Privacy. He almost laughed. You let me assign you tasks. You formatted my presentations. You got me coffee. For God's sake, Sarah. And you did it knowing he stopped. Took a breath. Knowing you could fire me any time you wanted. I could, I agreed. But I won't. You're good at your job, Marcus. Your operations update today was excellent. The board was impressed. Then why? His voice dropped. Why humiliate me in front of everyone? I didn't plan to humiliate you, I said. I planned to address the board about the IPO timeline. You're the one who asked me to fetch coffee during a shareholder meeting. He flinched. For 6 months, I continued. You've treated me like I'm less than you. Like my work doesn't matter. Because it doesn't come with a title you respect. You've made assumptions about my life, my marriage, my intelligence. You've been condescending to your wife, dismissive of your brother, and arrogant about your own accomplishments. A12. I'm not finished. My voice was still calm, still professional. But there was steel in it now. I gave you opportunities to see me differently. I did excellent work on every task you assigned. I was kind to your daughter. I was patient with your behavior. I hoped you'd eventually recognize that a person's value isn't determined by their job title or their salary or their office size. Marcus looked at the floor. You're good at operations, I said. You've made real improvements to our efficiency metrics. The team respects you. But leadership isn't just about hitting targets, Marcus. It's about how you treat people when you think they can't do anything for you. So what happens now? He asked. Do I pack my desk? No, I said. You keep doing your job. You keep being excellent at operations. And maybe, you think about the kind of leader you want to be. He looked up at me then, really looked, maybe for the first time. I don't expect an apology, I said. Not today. But I do expect respect. For me. For your wife. For everyone who works here. Can you do that? After a long moment, he nodded. Good. I picked up my bag. The board is doing lunch at Gramercy Tavern if you want to join. Your insights on the European expansion would be valuable. I walked out of the boardroom, leaving him standing there. In the hallway, David was waiting. He'd taken the morning off from NYU to be here, sitting in the visitors' lounge during the meeting. How'd it go? He asked, though he could probably read it on my face. Exactly as planned. He pulled me into a hug. I'm proud of you. For what? Embarrassing your brother? For being who you are, he said. For not changing to make other people comfortable. For building something amazing and then being humble enough to step back when you needed to. We walked to the elevator together. As the doors closed, I saw Marcus emerge from the boardroom, Jennifer beside him. They were talking quietly, her hand on his arm. 3 days later, Marcus sent me an email. Subject: From operations. Sarah, I've spent the last few days thinking about what you said. You were right. About all of it. I've been arrogant. I've measured people by metrics that don't matter: titles, salaries, offices. I've treated Jennifer like a prop instead of a partner. I've been competitive with David for no reason except my own insecurity. And I've been dismissive of you because I couldn't understand how someone could choose quiet impact over public recognition. I'm not good at apologies. But I'm sorry. I'm also grateful. You could have fired me. You could have told the board about my behavior. You could have made sure I never worked in tech again. Instead, you gave me a chance to be better. I'd like to take you and David to dinner. Jennifer and I would both like to apologize in person. No expectations. Just an attempt to start over, if you're willing. Also, for what it's worth, your IPO analysis was brilliant. I've been reviewing the data, and you're absolutely right about the market timing. Marcus. I showed the email to David that evening. Are you going to say yes? He asked. Should I? That's up to you. He was chopping vegetables for dinner. He hurt you. You don't owe him anything. He's your brother. He's an adult who made choices, David said. And now he's facing consequences. Whatever you decide, I support. I thought about it while we cooked, while we ate, while we cleaned up afterward. Finally, I replied, Marcus, thank you for the email. I appreciate your honesty. Dinner works. How about next Friday? There's a place in Brooklyn David and I like. Nothing fancy. Good pasta. We can talk. And you're welcome. I meant what I said. You're good at your job. I'm glad you're part of the team. Sarah. The dinner happened. It was awkward at first, lots of polite small talk, careful navigation around sensitive topics. But by the end of the night, something had shifted. Jennifer told me about her photography business, which she'd been hiding because Marcus had always dismissed it as just a hobby. Turned out, she was incredibly talented, had even sold a few pieces to galleries. Marcus listened to her talk about it with what looked like genuine interest. Maybe even pride. I didn't know that about you, he said to her. Why didn't you tell me? Because, she said gently, you made it clear that only certain kinds of success mattered to you. He nodded. Didn't argue. Just listened. On the walk home, David took my hand. Think he'll actually change? He asked. I don't know, I said. But I think he wants to. And that's a start. The IPO happened 8 months later, right on schedule. Q3 of the following year, just as I'd recommended. We debuted at $42 a share, and climbed to $63 by the end of the first day. My 60% stake was suddenly worth considerably more than it had been. Marcus's stock options made him wealthy. Not as wealthy as me, but wealthy enough to buy a bigger house, start a college fund for Lily, and support Jennifer's photography full-time. He sent me a text the day of the IPO. Thank you for believing in the company. And for believing I could be better than I was. I didn't respond immediately. Just watched the stock price climb on my laptop. Thought about the 9 years it had taken to get here. Thought about the choices I'd made and the person I'd become. Finally, I wrote back. We all get chances to be better. What matters is what we do with them. 2 years later, Meridian acquired a smaller competitor. Marcus led the integration. It was complex, politically fraught, required delicate handling of personnel and culture. He did it brilliantly. At the board meeting where we reviewed the acquisition results, he presented with his usual confidence. But something was different now. He credited his team by name. He acknowledged challenges and mistakes. He asked for feedback instead of defending every decision. When he finished, the board applauded. Robert gave him a standing ovation. As Marcus sat down, he caught my eye across the room. Smiled slightly, nodded. I smiled back. After the meeting, Claire from product development approached me. I heard a rumor, she said, that you once got Marcus coffee during a shareholder meeting. It's true, I said. Why? I thought about that. About all of it. The humiliation, the silence, the patience, the eventual revelation. about choosing the right moment instead of the easy moment, about giving people room to be wrong so they'd have space to be better. Because, I said finally, sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is let someone underestimate you. And then show them who you really are. Claire laughed. Remind me never to ask you to fetch coffee. Oh, I don't mind fetching coffee, I said. I mind people thinking that's all I'm capable of. There's a difference. She nodded thoughtfully. There really is. That evening, David and I hosted dinner at our apartment, the same minimalist Brooklyn two-bedroom we'd never bothered to upgrade. Marcus and Jennifer came. So did David's parents. Over dessert tiramisu that Jennifer had made, Marcus's father told a story about Marcus as a boy. Always competitive, always needing to be the best. I used to worry about that, their father said. Thought it would make him lonely. But look at him now. Look at all of you. He raised his glass. To family, to success, and to the people who keep us humble. We all drank to that. Later, as everyone was leaving, Marcus lingered by the door. Sarah, he said. I never properly thanked you. For what? For not giving up on me. He glanced back at Jennifer, who was helping David's mother with her coat. For showing me there are different kinds of strength. And for teaching me that respect isn't about titles or money or who has the corner office. You taught yourself that, I said. I just gave you the opportunity. Still. He extended his hand. Not for a handshake. For something more. Thank you. I took his hand. You're welcome. After they all left, David found me on the couch, curled up with a cup of tea. Good night, he asked. Yeah, I said. It was. He sat down beside me. No regrets? About how you handled everything. I thought about the shareholder meeting. The coffee. The laughter. The silence I'd maintained. And the moment I'd chosen to break it. No regrets, I said. Because here's the truth. I could have revealed myself immediately. Could have pulled Marcus aside his first week at Meridian and told him who I was. Could have prevented all the condescension, all the dismissiveness, all the coffee runs. But then he wouldn't have learned anything. And neither would I. I learned that I could be powerful without proving it every day. That I could choose silence not from weakness but from strategy. That sometimes the most important battles aren't the ones you fight publicly. And Marcus learned that success without humility is hollow. That treating people well isn't optional. That the person you dismiss might be the person who decides your future. We both learned that respect isn't something you demand. It's something you earn. And that earning it requires seeing people really seeing them regardless of their title or their role or their position relative to yours. The coffee was just coffee. 2 sugars, exactly as requested. But the lesson? That was worth everything.